On that unfortunate day, at 5 p.m., the kraken suddenly emerged at Seongsan Bridge, resulting in the loss of numerous lives. Rescue operations had been ongoing for quite some time. The goddess government issued a statement regarding this tragic event. Meanwhile, after the aforementioned tragedy, Yoon-ha and his sister were admitted to the hospital, and Yoon-ha sat by his sister's bedside, watching the news on television while she remained unconscious. He remembered what the doctor had explained. Yoon-ha had suffered from mana exhaustion due to a lack of mana in her body. However, the doctor assured him that she would be fine after taking a mana potion, so Yoon-ha didn't need to worry too much. A smile formed on his face as he thought about how it was finally over, and how relieved he was that none of his family members had perished. Yoon-ha had successfully altered the future this time. Lost in his thoughts, Yoon-ha was startled when he heard his parents calling his name. He quickly turned towards the door, where the sound had originated from, and saw his parents' faces filled with concern. The worry in their eyes was evident, and Yoon-ha could sense that tears were on the verge of falling. With a sinking feeling in his gout, Yoon-ha realized he was in trouble and anticipated an immediate scolding from his parents. Yoon-ha's parents approached him, with his mother taking the lead and asking if he was hurt anywhere. Yoon-ha replied gently, assuring her that he was fine. His father chimed in, inquiring about his sister Yoon-ha's condition. Yoon-ha explained that she was currently sleeping because her mana levels were depleted, and a mana potion had been administered to her. His father let out a sigh and proceeded to question why Yoon-ha had run out and disobeyed their orders. Yoon-ha, with a hint of remorse, apologized for his actions. However, in Yoon-ha's thoughts, he pondered why he had to apologize, and the result was that his family had survived. He believed it was the best possible outcome. Since everyone was alive, Yoon-ha didn't feel any remorse. However, when he looked up and saw the expressions on his parents' faces filled with worry and concern, he quickly realized that their concern wasn't about the outcome, but rather about the fact that he had put them all in danger by running towards the kraken. Yoon-ha was well aware of how terrifying it would have been to lose his family, yet he had acted on his own without considering his parents' feelings. And with this realization, Yoon-ha began to break down in tears, expressing his sincere apologies to his parents once again, and promising that he would never repeat his actions. Yoon-ha's mother extended her arms, inviting him to come closer, and embraced him tightly. His father, with a look of relief on his face, told Yoon-ha that he should never do such a thing again, because he didn't understand just how worried they had been. Because of this, Yoon-ha realized that he didn't need to fight monsters anymore, and that he could truly live like a child now. He understood that this is probably what his parents wanted for him as well. The next morning, Yoon-ha's father instructed him to stay in the room and wait for them, as they were going to handle Yoon-ha's discharge procedures. Yoon-ha happily replied that he would wait there, no matter what happens. He understood that his parents' trust in him had hit rock bottom after the incident, and he planned to be obedient for the time being. Hoping to regain their trust, while he was looking at his sister Yoon-ha, he decided to eat some chocolates. They were so delicious that he wanted more. He thought that because he had exerted a lot of strength, he felt like eating something sweet. While he was lost in his thoughts, someone offered him chocolate cookies and told him that he should try them too. To his surprise, the person offering the cookies was none other than Kang Hyun-chul, the member of the 12 Thrones who had easily defeated the kraken. Yoon-ha was taken aback by the unexpected encounter. Kang Hyun-chul asked him if he didn't like chocolate cookies, and without waiting for a response, he opened the wrapper and placed a cookie in Yoon-ha's mouth. Yoon-ha thought that Kang Hyun-chul must be dying, but he didn't appear to be near death at all. In that moment, Yoon-ha questioned Kang Hyun-chul's sanity, considering the possibility that he might be going crazy. However, he quickly dismissed the thought, realizing that he had always crazy from the very beginning. Kang Hyun-chul asked Yoon-ha about his age, and his sister Yoon-ha's age, to which Yoon-ha quickly responded that he was 6 years old and his sister Yoon-ha was 10 years old. Kang Hyun-chul then inquired about Yoon-ha's own name. Confused, Yoon-ha asked why he was asking for his sister's name. However, Kang Hyun-chul clarified that he was actually asking for Yoon-ha's name. Yoon-ha introduced himself as No Yoon-ha. Upon learning this information, Kang Hyun-chul suddenly offered Yoon-ha the opportunity to join the academy and assured him that he would provide a recommendation. In Yoon-ha's thoughts, He suspected that Kang Hyunchul's true motive was to recruit him into the academy and train him to become a player, only to later challenge him when he became an adult. Yoon-ha couldn't help but question whether Kang Hyunchul was gathering individuals to fight because he ran out of opponents. Kang Hyunchul stood up and advised Yoon-ha to take his time to think about joining the academy since he was still young. He assured Yoon-ha that he would remember his name. Leaving the room, he found Park Hye-rim waiting for him outside. Curious about his intentions, she then mentioned the miracle that had occurred, something unprecedented in Korea. However, Kang Hyunchul nonchalantly responded that he didn't care about miracles. What mattered to him was the strength of the kids. This caused Park Hye-rim to lose her temper and label him as a fighting-obsessed idiot. In response, Kang Hyunchul retorted that he wasn't an idiot and reminded her of his seniority, advising her to watch her words now that she had become one of the 12 thrones. He pointed out that if the so-called miracle received global attention, the child involved would never be able to live a normal life again. He asked Park Hye-rim if that was what she wanted to happen. Hearing his words, Park Hye-rim was left speechless, emphasizing that if Park Hye-rim understood the situation, she should keep her hands off the matter. Kang Hyunchul then suggested that they both visit a dessert cafe or something similar. Park Hye-rim questioned if he was crazy, but he swiftly reminded her to watch her words as he had mentioned before. Kang Hyunchul simply wanted to satisfy his craving for something sweet. After exerting a bit of strength, after Yoon-ha was discharged from the hospital, they headed directly to their grandmother's house the day the kraken disappeared. As they arrived, they noticed their grandmother standing outside her house, patiently waiting for them to step out of the car. Yoon-ha's father expressed his concern, asking why she was outside if she wasn't feeling well. Grandma responded with a warm smile and explained that she missed them dearly and simply wanted to see her beloved grandchildren. However, both kids were fast asleep in the car, completely exhausted from the journey. Grandma couldn't help but express her affectionate advice for them to rest well and regain their energy. Later that day, Yoon-ha woke up in the middle of the room, finding his sister hugging him tightly as she peacefully slept. Yoon-ha couldn't help but wonder where she acquired the habit of sleeping so soundly. However, he quickly realized that Yoon-ha must have inherited it from their mother, as he observed his mom doing the exact same thing to their father while she also was fast asleep. Yoon-ha then carefully tucked the blanket around his sister, ensuring she remained warm and comfortable before quietly leaving the room. He found a spot outside and sat down, his mind filled with thoughts about his own mana, and whether it had increased or if it was due to his unique gift. Yoon-ha's gift was known as Berserk, was bestowed upon him before his regression. It was a gift that allowed him to enhance his physical and magical abilities by consuming mana. However, true to its name, the more mana he consumed, the more he would lose control and succumb to a frenzied state, abandoning all reason. However, Yoon-ha recalled that he did not lose consciousness during his battle with the kraken. This made him ponder the possibility that the Berserk gift might be even more advantageous if it did not come with the penalty of losing one's reasoning. He couldn't help but wonder if he simply didn't fully understand the true nature of his gift. Lost in his thoughts, Yoon-ha didn't notice his grandma approaching him. His grandma then asked why he was still awake and what he was doing. Yoon-ha calmly replied that he had overslept in the car. His grandma then told him that if he wanted to grow faster, he should sleep a lot. Yoon-ha remembered the past when his grandma used to stay with him. Whenever he was lost in his thoughts, he looked at his grandma and realized that she was waiting for him to start a conversation, whether it was about a problem, his feelings, or just small talk. He knew that she was always there to listen and offer her support. Yoon-ha then took the initiative to ask first. He asked his grandma why she was still awake. She simply smiled and replied that it was because Yoon-ha was still awake. This was exactly what Yoon-ha had always wanted, to have a genuine connection with his grandma. As he looked at her, he felt like a child again, completely immersed in the warmth and love of his grandmother's presence. Suddenly, Yoon-ha's grandma offered him if he wants a warm cup of milk, but he politely declined the offer. Unaware, his mother had also brought milk for the three of them. She asked who would drink the third cup. With no other option, Yoon-ha reluctantly decided to drink the milk his mother had brought. His mother then explained to grandma how surprised she was when she answered the phone call, Grandma replied that is why she assured her she was fine, and mentioned that the old lady next door tends to be a bit dramatic. However, Yuna's mother insisted that she was worried when she heard that Grandma had fainted. They only knew that Yuna's grandmother missed a step on the stairs, but luckily only ended up with a scratch. Grandma then explained what truly happened. She told them that she was distracted and called it a daydream. She shared that while she was walking up the stairs, she saw Yuna's grandpa. Yuna's mom wanted to interrupt, but Grandma assured her that she was not senile and asked her daughter to listen till the end. She continued her story, saying that she saw Yuna's grandpa waving his hands and telling her not to go there. However, upon reflection, she realized that Grandpa wasn't directing those words to her but instead to them. Upon hearing what his grandma told them, Yunha couldn't help but think that calling it a dream would be strange. He reasoned that if things went wrong, the whole family would end up where his grandpa is. Yunha came to the realization that if it was something like that, his grandma should have told them explicitly. Grandma then told them that she found it fascinating because she had a dream a while ago. In that dream, Yuna's grandpa said to her that there was a lonely deer outside. When she went outside, she found out that it was Yunha. Yuna's mother suddenly spoke up. When she heard her mother mention a deer, she shared that she had a dream similar to that before, where she saw her father leaving together with a deer. His mother then changed the topic by asking him what he wanted to be when he grew up. Yunha was stunned upon hearing the question, and suddenly remembered those people who had asked him for help and pleaded with him to save them. His mother noticed the sudden change on Yuna's face, and immediately asked if something was wrong. As a result, Yunha answered that at the moment he still didn't know what he wanted to be in the future. His grandma then told him that it's alright, that he still didn't know because he was still young and had plenty of time. She assured him that he would experience both happy and tough times, make many friends, have fights with them, study well, and play. She believed that one day Yunha would figure out what he wanted to be, and if Yunha still didn't know by then, he could just keep living until he find it out. Yunha then realized that his grandma simply wanted to encourage him to live life to the fullest. They both embraced him tightly, while expressing their belief that time was on his side, and that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. His mother explained that the name Yunha derived from the universe, symbolizing boundless potential. She reassured him that she would support him wholeheartedly, no matter what path he chose. His grandma echoed the sentiment, expressing her own desire to cheer him on in his endeavors. During their conversation, Yuna opened the door and expressed her desire to also have some milk. Her mother inquired if she was already awake, and her grandma kindly offered her a glass of the milk she was drinking. Yuna readily agreed and accepted the offer. Yunha smiled as he looked at them, but suddenly he remembered the paper carnation he had wanted to give to his grandma. His grandma expressed her gratitude as she received the carnation from Yunha, stating that she would proudly place it on top of her shoe cupboard to show it off. In Yuna's mind, he believed his grandma wanted to display it there to boast about it to her neighbors. In Yuna's thoughts, he realized that his grandma might not be aware of his intentions, and he didn't mind if she wasn't. However, he wanted to create joyful memories for his grandma in this lifetime, and he was grateful to her for raising him. That day at Yuna's house, his parents called both Yunha and his sister Yuna, as they had some good news to share. They announced that they were going to have another sibling. Yunha was taken aback by the unexpected news, while Yun eagerly approached their parents, asking if it was true that she would be getting another younger sibling. Their parents exchanged smiles and reassured them that indeed a new sibling was on the way. However, Yuna's mother noticed his lack of immediate reaction and approached him. Suddenly, Yunha burst into tears and expressed his gratitude. He tearfully conveyed that this was the best thing that had ever happened to him since his birth, and that it was the most significant event in his life. His father made a playful comment, telling that people might mistake Yunha for being the father of the new sibling. This light-hearted remark brought laughter to the room, and they all shared a joyful moment together. Meanwhile, at Du in kindergarten, the children were engaged in a game of playing family, and they assigned Yunha the role of Pochi, their dog. Yunha couldn't resist joining in the fun, and enthusiastically played along with the other children. They asked Yunha why he was crying, and comforted him by gently petting his head. assuring him that he was a good boy and that there was no need to cry. Minji then asked the others why they found Pochi, the dog, cute. Suddenly, she teased Yoonha by suggesting that they should just get rid of the mixed-breed dog. Yoonha felt that Minji was always trying to provoke him whenever she had the opportunity. However, Minji challenged him, asking if he wanted to be scolded or if he wanted her to report him to the teacher. As a result, Yoonha couldn't help but act obediently, like a well-behaved dog. This was all teacher Taeo's fault. He had noticed Yoonha sleeping on the side of the room, and decided to involve him in the game of playing family with the other children. That's why Yoonha was now forced to play the role of a dog. Fortunately, Yoonha finally found an opportunity to escape from the children when one of their classmates arrived and diverted their attention. Yoonha successfully escaped and entered another room, where he found Haein engrossed in a book. Curious, Yoonha asked her what book she was reading. Haein replied that she was reading Sherlock Holmes, because she had recently become obsessed with it. However, Yoonha made the mistake of revealing a spoiler from the Sherlock Holmes memoir, where Sherlock and Professor Moriarty fall into the waterfalls and die. Haein was shocked by what Yoonha said, and couldn't help but ask, "What did Yoonha just say?" Yoonha realized his mistake a bit too late, and felt guilty for accidentally spoiling it for Haein. She was furious with Yoonha, accusing him of being mean because she hadn't even read that part yet. Yoonha apologized for his actions, but he couldn't resist teasing her further by revealing that Sherlock actually comes back to life. In the return of Sherlock Holmes, Yoonha could see that his words upset Haein even more, and she burst into tears, calling him mean once again. Feeling remorseful, Yoonha turned around and walked away, realizing the impact of his actions and genuinely sorry for what he had done. Afterward, Yoonha noticed a group of boys playing, and one of them appeared to have lost to a sword fight, complaining about unfairness and vowing to defeat his opponent next time. At that moment, Choi Yoon-yuk caught sight of Yoonha observing them from the sidelines and declared that he wanted to determine the strongest student in their class, fixating his gaze on Yoonha. Excitement rippled through the other children as they realized Yoonha and Yoon-yuk were about to engage in a battle. Curiosity got the best of one of the kids, who asked that who is the strongest among them. However, in Yoonha's mind, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of TV shows these kids watch to make them act this way. As Yoon-yuk drew his sword and pointed it at Yoonha, he declared that this town wasn't big enough for the both of them, and that he would settle things right there. Yoon-yuk instructed Yoonha to pick up his own sword, preparing for their supposed showdown. Yoon-yuk's buddies began to cheer him on, urging him to defeat Yoonha and prove himself as the strongest. Another kid shouted that Yoonha must be defeated because he was popular with the girls. Meanwhile, Yoonha noticed Minji watching and calling out to him. He initially thought she would cheer for him, but to his surprise, she wanted him to be defeated. It quickly dawned on Yoonha that this was the kind of person Minji was. Yoonha asked himself if there was someone who would cheer for him, and in that moment, he remembered Haein. However, he realized that Haein now hated him because of the incident where he spoiled her book. Upon realizing that he was once again all alone in life, Yoonha felt a sense of despair. In their imagination, they envisioned a medieval setting where they were engaged in a duel within a grand arena. Yoon-yuk swiftly initiated his attacks, swinging his sword with determination. However, Yoonha effortlessly deflected each strike, causing Yoon-yuk to lose his grip on the sword. The weapon flew out of his hands, leaving him defenseless and vulnerable. With a swift motion, Yoonha delivered a decisive blow, resulting in Yoon-yuk's defeat. Yoonha slowly sheathed his sword at his waist, giving off an air of confidence. However, Yoon-yuk insisted that it wasn't over and claimed he could still fight, hinting at his sealed powers. Suddenly, he collapsed to the ground, unable to continue. The kids who witnessed their duel admired Yoonha for emerging as the victor. Yoonha graciously acknowledged Yoon-yuk, remarking that it was a good fight akin to a knight winning a duel. The crowd erupted in cheers for Yoonha's victory. Some commented that it was expected of him, while others praised his acting skills, attributing them to his previous experiences playing family with the girls. One of the kids suggested that Yoonha should be the one to attempt pulling out the Excalibur. Yoonha was taken aback by the suggestion. He couldn't believe that the kids had set up another toe sword. symbolizing the legendary Excalibur, as if it were waiting to be wielded by a hero. Reluctantly, Yoonha felt obliged to give it a try. As the kids were eagerly anticipating his attempt, Yoonha began to pull the sword out from the pile of blocks and lifted it high. The children erupted in cheers as they watched the scene unfold. They continued to chant Yoonha's name with excitement. Yoonha couldn't help but hope that this would be the end of such childish experiences for him. Meanwhile, in a park near the kindergarten where Yoonha was enrolled, an unexpected event unfolded. Rank 7 monsters known as goblins had suddenly appeared. The Marionnier Knights took their positions on the front lines, but it was reported that 2 of the goblins had managed to escape. The Manhwa Management Bureau confirmed that there was a high possibility of the goblins hiding in crowded areas.